Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to the Falcoholic Live. We're here for our Falcons vs. Saints Week 10 post-game show. I'm Kevin Knight, joined by my co-host Alan Strk. Alan, welcome back to the program. Ugly-ass game today from start to finish. A few little shots of energy where you're like, maybe they can do this. But yeah, ultimately, the Falcons just didn't look good pretty much all day. They couldn't really string multiple things together at any point, and it ends up costing them, as they have a good second half from the defense after the worst first half of the season, and it doesn't matter because the offense can't do a damn thing late in the game. And of course you get 3 missed field goals from Younghoe Koo, 1 technically blocked for the record, so I don't think we can necessarily blame Koo for that one, but ugly ass game, Alan. Other than so I know you're not enjoying that, but other than that, how are we doing today?
Just everything that could have went wrong. Like, I don't think the panic button needs to be hit because I do think the offense was moving the ball well. But I think as the game goes on, you kind of realize, all right, off the top of your head, or maybe you can look it up, how many pass attempts did Cousins have?
I will look it up, but
is it 50? It felt 50. And the idea of Kirk Cousins throwing the ball 50 times does not usually translate into winning
38
game.
attempts. 38
okay,
attempts.
It felt like 50.
Yeah,
maybe he had probably had at least 40 dropbacks. So you got to think the Cam Jordan sack, which wow, Cam Jordan got a sack in 2024. That's when you knew the Saints were really getting everything going for them. And then obviously Chase Young had his moment. Look, I know Cousins had like 64 dropbacks against the Bucks, and they won the wild Thursday night game. But the idea, it just felt like he was throwing the ball a lot, and the Saints did a good job of taking stuff underneath away, and they had to force the ball a lot downfield. And while Cousins has moments, Kyle Pitts, who, man, we got to give a shout out to Kyle Pitts, one of the plays this season. But just see, like, the more Cousins had to force the ball, particularly in the middle of the field, there was more danger. And Tyrann Mathieu clearly on the decline, but there's going to be times where Tyrann Mathieu is going to pop up and just make a game-changing play, and he did. So I'm not hitting the panic button, but obviously this is very disappointing, but I just think the Falcons lost this game more than the Saints won this game. That's my general summary.
Yeah, no, I agree. They just looked bad all game. I mean, I don't know, man. I hate to say this. They look like they treated this team like a joke. Like, the way they were playing coverage on these receivers suggested they had no fear whatsoever. The safeties were being super aggressive. We saw them like blitzing like really aggressively like early in this game, and it's like, that's just not your game. Like, this is like, I don't know why you're choosing to play this Saints team like you don't respect them at all. Like, you're like, we're just gonna rush, like that first third down where they gave up like 15 yards. It was like, we're gonna rush like 8 guys, and it's like, why? Like, you don't get pressure. Like, I don't understand why they felt like that was a good call. But I mean, that was kind of the story of the defense the whole first half. Not to mention the offense completely nosediving for the entire first quarter. So
I'm actually going to disagree with you there, because we know Carr struggles under pressure. When you hit him, he starts to get rattled. He gets happy feet, starts, even on that intentional grounding. Like, that was a really bad play by Derek Carr. Like, other than James Smith-Williams with the bull rush, like, Carr really was under pressure, but he just chucked that bounce and got intentional ground. You just know that he gets rattled very easily under pressure. So I didn't mind that approach. I just thought it was more of an execution issue. Like, Clark Phillips had multiple bad individual errors. Like, he allowed Austin to get him on 3rd and 14. I didn't know who Austin was. I think his name's Kevin Austin.
Kevin Austin Jr. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those super high RAS receivers from a couple drafts ago. So.
See, Kevin's draft expertise come in the clutch as always. And then MVS, who couldn't catch a deep ball, save his life last year, and catches 2 in this game. So I just thought the execution on the back end was probably more of the reason rather than questionable coaching. Like, I didn't necessarily mind the blitzing just because we know how much Derek Carr struggles there. But look, let's give the Saints some credit just because offensively they execute very well at moments. Like, we talked about, I think Adnan mentioned last week, this was their Super Bowl. They approached it like their Super Bowl, and they won their Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, you knew the Saints were going to be fired up in this game regardless of anything else going on. This was their Super Bowl. And I feel really disappointed by how the Falcons approached this. I don't think they took this game seriously, and I think it showed everywhere. Defensively, I think late in the game they figured it out. Like, I think they figured out that, we just need to send 5, and that's plenty. And I think throughout the whole season, when they've sent 5 rushers, they've had the most success of any other combination.
Okay.
4, they just don't get any pressure. 5, that seems to be the kind of good match between pressure and coverage for them. Because when they all out blitz, when we saw this at the end of the Cowboys game, they like did like a 7-man pressure on Cooper Rush, and he just hit the open man, and there's not enough guys back there in coverage, and that ended up being a crazy touchdown for them. So, I don't think they're at their best playing like balls to the wall, crazy pressure. I do think they need to blitz. I just think like 5-man pressure kind of seems like the sweet spot for this team, where like 4 is not quite enough, but they really need the guys in coverage because, again, they when they rush that many guys, they just don't get home. Like, I get the idea behind it, certainly. Yeah, I certainly get the idea.
A more controlled manner.
Yeah,
not Todd Bowles, Brian Flores. We're going to really go full exotic because this defense doesn't have the personnel to go full exotic. But I still think there was more personnel. Like, Justin Simmons bounced back a second, but Justin Simmons looked lost early on. Clark Phillips looked overwhelmed. Like, the questions about Clark Phillips' size kind of showed up in this game. And it's disappointing because you wanted him to step up. This was his moment because Mike Hughes went out. And in critical moments, he kind of fell short, even though he did start the game off well with 2 nice open field tackles. But it's rare that the secondary was at fault because I thought the front, for the most part, even Nate Landman was making play. Look at that 4th down. It was Kay Nelson, Nate Landman with the stops. Yep. So, like, the front played relatively well. I thought, especially in the second half, like, the reason why the Saints offense kind of stumbled is because they were in 3rd and either 6 or 7 or even 10 for most instances because first, second down, whether it was Anya Mata or Goldman, they were stopping the run really well. And they were holding their own at the point of attack. So, to me, the defensive shortcomings were mostly on the secondary, and it's rare to see that.
No, it was. And again, I think that's a symptom of like they didn't respect this Saints receiver room at all. And like I certainly understand that from a layperson's perspective. I mean, it's like they're bringing in guys off the squad, like all this.
When was the last time you seen Dante Pettis? I can't remember Dante Pettis. I
think draft night. I remember seeing Dante Pettis, but that was about it. And it's like you have to throw out like the paper stuff, right? Like the Saints are down multiple offensive linemen. Their defense is reeling. They've got a bunch of backup corners on the board. None of that's going to matter because these guys are going to play 10 points above what they are. Like that, because this is like, you can't underestimate the energy that this team had coming off getting rid of the dead weight that clearly was Dennis Allen. Everybody seems to hate that dude. Like, it's wild that he kept his job considering how much vitriol there seems to be around Dennis Allen, like days after he was fired. I mean, like, that's wild to me.
Yeah, he's built the organization for so long too. Like, we're not talking about someone that just got hired a year or 2 ago. Like, he was their defensive coordinator for numerous years. So,
and the Bucs did lose to San Francisco, so that the Falcons still have that 3-game lead. But like, the Bucs are playing way better than Atlanta right now. Like, that 49ers team is legit.
Way better.
Like, I don't know, man. Like, their defense is bad, but like they've given the 49ers and the Chiefs in back-to-back weeks absolutely everything they could handle. And the Falcons are over here like getting their shit kicked in by the Saints and hoping to come back and win this game on the back of just a bad performance. And it's like, it's a rival. Again, this is probably going to be one of those just weird games. And I think anyone could have told you that, given the Saints just fired their coach. This is the emotional sort of thing. Like, these weird games happen all the time after a team gets fired. I mean, remember the Raiders last year? Didn't they beat the Chiefs or something off the firing of what's his name?
I don't know if it was the
remember.
Chiefs. Josh McDaniels. I don't think it was the Chiefs, but they beat somebody. They beat the Chiefs on Christmas, but that was well after. Yeah. But it's those new bounces. I think it was Jeff Saturday won his first game.
Yeah,
that's what Matt Ryan had a 50-yard run.
Exactly. That just weird stuff happens after this. So like you knew like the Saints were going to come out playing like not the same team that they are. Like this always happens. There's a reason the interim coaches are like 15-13, even though like the teams that fire coaches are obviously really, really bad. That they have a winning record after they fire their coach is really like more meaningful than it might appear. So, the Falcons were going to have to come in here like expecting this team to be a lot better than they look on film. And that's exactly what happened. They played exactly the game they wanted to play. Obviously, the Falcons figured it out in the second half, but like, and you like to see that. Like, I think the offense and defense kind of figured it out in the second half. Obviously, the Falcons, I think, felt that they couldn't trust the kicking game at all going into the second half. And it was proven, obviously, early in the second half, too. And I that changes the way you play. And that's obviously, I think, a big deal. That they couldn't rely on Koo basically anymore. But as bad as like the defense played in the first half and the offense played in the first and fourth quarters, like I think, I think this comes down to Koo, like 100%. Like the block kick was not his fault. So like people are saying 9 points, okay, like it's more like 6, but still 6 points wins you this game. And like, is Kirk pressing like he is at the end of this game if the Falcons are up 3? No, they're running the ball like they should have been the whole time. And like, I think you just, how many teams win games missing 3 field goals? Like, you just don't see it. Like, it's just, that's so many wasted possessions.
I'm going to disagree with you on the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff had faith in Koo because I don't know if it was the late third quarter, early fourth quarter, but Koo attempted like a 44-yard kick that was missed. And I think it was 4th and 3. And the Falcons are 4th in the league in fourth down conversion rate. They're converting about 73% of fourth downs. They've been outstanding. But yet, multiple times this game, whether it was 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, they opted to go with Koo. So I think the coaching staff had firm belief. Because I remember there was a moment where Morris had like a weird smirk on his face. I'm not sure why. And it was definitely in the second half. And they sent Koo out there and he missed the kick again. So, no, I think they it was weird to see him so conservative when it was clear the offense needed a jolt because they came out the game looking really sluggish. Kirk had to throw the ball in some tight windows. So I was surprised to see how conservative Raheem Morris was there. I'm curious, did you see Trayshawn's tweet about Koo's movement? I was curious to know if you have any take on that.
I mean, I guess I don't really understand why guys try to change their fundamentals, like when they've been in the league having success for so long. Like, I get the idea of like, maybe I can go from being like a Pro Bowl kicker to a Hall of Fame kicker if I can make this change. But I think more often than not, you see it cause problems because you've got the muscle memory for 15 years one way and you're trying to go against it. And I imagine it's like trying to change your golf swing. It's like you see these pros try to make these slight changes and it throws everything off. And I think in hindsight is a really bad decision by Koo to try to change his kicking motion to try to squeeze a little bit more out of it when he's been such a good, reliable kicker with it the way it was. I just think the risk was not worth the benefit. I know and maybe there was pressure from the team, because he's not one of these super long distance kickers. He can hit 55, 55 to 58. Clearly he hit 58 earlier this season, but like so many teams are attempting like 58 plus field goals, like they're expecting to get them now. And I don't really think he's that type of kicker, but like we don't need that. We just need him to be able to hit field goals accurately all the time. And that's kind of what he was known for. And I think, this is a big turning point for his career. I think he's got to go back to what he was doing before because, I mean, this is the worst season since his first year in the NFL where he, again, was missing a ton of kicks, ended up out of the league for several years after that.
Yeah. It's hard to process because he was so automatic. Like, they'll win the Saints game earlier in the year without him, and the Bucs on Thursday night without him. I know some will say, okay, he kind of got the Saints. He did get the Saints back, the Bucs back in the last meeting where he missed a crucial kick. So there's no denying, but the kickers go through phases. Not everyone's going to be Brandon Aubrey. Look at Justin Tucker right now. People are questioning him if he's going to be the same. So I do think this talk, and you definitely want to hear your take on this. Should they bring in insurance? Should there be workouts this week? Yeah, I think I'm for that. But the idea of just benching Koo or getting rid of Koo, I think is harsh, and I think that would be a rash decision. This guy's done a lot for the franchise. Let him bounce back. But I do think in this position now, especially next week, going against a very good Denver defense, the Falcons, as they should be going forward, they need to be more proactive going forward fourth down because they're clearly one of the best fourth down teams in the league. So if anything, do that. But the idea of cutting Koo, I don't know. I think that is a very rash decision.
They're not going to do that right now. Yeah. But, I mean, he can't have another game like this or he will get cut. Like, you can't miss 3 kicks in a game ever. Like, I don't care who you are. Like, teams don't put up with that for more than 1 week. And he's now, I think, 50% in his last 6 games kicking field goals. He's 8 of 17 or whatever, or 8 of 16, something like that. So, he's on the absolute ropes now in terms of his future in Atlanta. And it's also like he's expensive too. Like, Falcons, I think, can save a million or so this year, even considering his contract, and multiple millions next year. So, like, he can't just be okay. Like, he's gonna have, like, especially with the cap crunch coming up, he's gonna have to turn it on and demonstrate to this team that he's worth the money, because even if he's just okay to finish the year, are they going to pass up, $3 to $5 million in cap savings to keep an okay kicker when they're on the brink of being in cap trouble? I mean, this is a dangerous spot for him to be in. He's not justified his contract this year, and you know, I don't want to, like, I think people are forgetting all the good things Koo's done, and you shouldn't punish him, like tarnish his legacy for what he has done for this team. Like, he's played very well in his past, and the Falcons have benefited a lot from Younghoe Koo. But so don't like conflate his bad play now with like he's a bad player. Like, he's been a very good player for this team for many years. It may be coming to its end. I don't know. I think we still, it's still to be seen. But don't slander his past because he's playing bad now. Like, he gave this team so many good years. So
you got to think he came on to 2019. Like, he's been here for a very long time, and he's produced a high level. And look, I'm not trying to go after fans, listeners. Like, look, we all thank you. We all appreciate you for listening. But I do question sometimes when people are tarnishing a great player. It's like, do you watch other games? Do you watch how many teams struggle to find a kicker? Like, there are maybe 6 or 7 dependable kickers in the league. Like, it is a hard position to pinpoint. There's franchises out there that have struggled for years to find one. So I just appreciate someone that's been so valuable and so dependable, because you go back to even like 2021, like the game-winning kicks against the Giants, the Dolphins, the Saints, and look, even this year, like, this team could be under 500 without him. Like, let's be clear, that Saints game, he bailed them out. That Tampa game, the first one, bailed them out. Okay, you can bring up the Tampa game on the road, and if he hits the kick, then it's an 8-point game. Fine, I get that, but let's not question what he's done this year. So I'm still going to hold this opinion that Tay was just a game of freak accidents. The only long-term issues for me, and if there are other long-term issues, I can definitely highlight them, but to me, it's obviously Younghoe Koo. It's still a long-term concern, no denying that, and maybe the secondary. Besides that, I really don't have any questions with the offense. I just think there was just more ridiculous mistakes, whether it's pre-snap mistakes or just crazy moments with Caleb McGary tripping on people. Like,
two of those aren't led to sacks. Yeah.
And big sacks that just ruined 2 very good drives. And look, I want to play the officiating game, but that Chris Lindstrom personal foul penalty, what on earth was that?
That was a bad call.
That's a game changer. They're at the 1-yard line. It's second and goal at the 1 if that penalty has happened. So I just think there was a lot of things that didn't go their way, because you look at the drive charts, like the Falcons are moving the ball. Cousins wasn't that efficient, but I think you got to credit more to the Saints playing better man coverage than we expected. And then I don't know if you noticed this, but they were spot dropping their edge rushers a lot to take away the underneath stuff that Drake London. And I think that did have an effect on Cousins, where he had to go through his progressions longer and he had to throw the ball more downfield, and that's what led to a couple of inaccurate throws. So I think a lot of things didn't go their way, rather than, okay, we got to hit the panic button. I think the Falcons are going to be okay, but there is going to be extra pressure now going against Denver, because if they lose to Denver, you're playing with fire, because the second half, after the bye, that schedule, it's going to get more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tough. I don't think, that Denver game is really going to be a difficult one to win. Denver should have beat the Chiefs today. Denver has a great defense, and
very
they're
good
going on
line.
the road. They're going on the road to Denver. That's not a good situation. So, after last week, if you told somebody the Falcons would be 6-5 going into their bye, you'd probably say like, "Wow, that's a catastrophe." Well, that's what they're looking at now. Like, they needed to win this one, and then they could have afforded to lose that Broncos game. Now they can't. The Bucs face the easiest closing schedule of any team in the NFL. You can't let up here. And the Falcons have some tough games left. They got to go to Denver. They got to play the Chargers. The Vikings obviously look much more mortal now, so maybe that's a winnable game. But Washington, the Bucs don't have any of these games left. They could go 7-1. They could finish really strong. You can't falter over this last bit, or you're going to end up blowing your lead. And we all know all about that here in Atlanta, so that would be very comforting.
Although I would have questioned just Tampa's defense.
They're really bad.
They're easy unit to get at. So, but hey, man, Liam Cohen might be one of the best play callers. But going back to this, I want to ask you, do you see any long-term concerns outside of Koo in the secondary? Was there anything else in this game that was glaring that we should monitor going forward?
I think Kirk Cousins under pressure is still really bad. Particularly he fumbles the ball every time he's sacked, and that's gonna cost the Falcons games. He needs to hold on to the goddamn football. It's ridiculous. He fumbled every time he was touched. And when he's not touched, he looks great. So it's at least you have that. But there's a reason the Falcons signed Kirk Cousins and then drafted Michael Penix, because Cousins is a good quarterback, and when he's on it, he looks amazing. I mean, we've seen it this year, but he has striking limitations that will probably prevent you from being a legit contender if you get a bad matchup in the playoffs. And when you get these good, and I think we're going to see it against Denver, when you get these defenses that can put pressure on him, what can he do? Like, can he actually beat the pressure? He's done well against the blitz in recent weeks, but like this, he can't move. He can't evade pressure in the pocket. And when he gets touched, he fumbles the football. And if you're going to fumble every time you get sacked, like you're going to lose those possessions. And like, that's part of the reason I think the Falcons were like, yeah, like we probably need a backup plan here, because we're going to hit a wall with him eventually. And like to Cousins' credit, I think he's clearly justified his contract, is clearly the best quarterback the Falcons have had in ages. At the same time, you can see why the Falcons were like, we can't really like make this the only plan, because there's a reason he's not considered one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. And it's because he does have those big limitations and he shows it from time to time. I think it was also pretty clear he started to press again in this game with the high throws and just that pick to London. That it's just inexcusable, man. You can't throw that football. Kyle Pitts is sitting there wide open for the first down, and he's going for, like, they did this on third down all day. They passed up check downs for these 10 to 15 yard throws, and they missed almost every single one. And it's like, it's okay to just get the first down. Like, I don't know, like, and even like when it was bad, the Falcons were only down 10 points. It's like, why are we pressing? Why are you playing so over the top aggressive when you just need to string drives together, especially with the defense playing like it was? It's like, it's kind of inexplicable to me. And I don't think that's a Zach Robinson thing. I think that's a Kirk Cousins just choosing these throws every time. And it's like, it's problematic. It's problematic.
It's almost a repeat of the first matchup with the Saints. That final drive where he passed up on Pitts multiple times in the flat, where they could have got 8-9 yards to get a more favorable field goal. Instead, he's going 25 yards downfield to a well-covered Darnell Mooney, which it just multiple times just wasted passes. So, yeah, I think he, for a guy that's so composed and intelligent, he does, I think, get emotional. And we saw today, and you make a great point about the fumbles. Like we know his limitations, and it's been the story of his career. He does get riled in the pocket, even when he was in peak health form. It's always been the story of his career. But it's just, there's little margin for error for the offense line. It's unfortunate. And they desperately, especially going to Denver next week, because Denver, Vance Joseph is one of the most aggressive defensive coordinators in the league. They lead the league in blitz percentage rate. They really need Drew Dalman back, because even on the short yards, like people get after Tyler Allgeier, which is fine. Like, look, it's obvious. Look, we know Bijan Robinson, what he brings, and we know what Tyler Allgeier brings to the table. Like Ryan Newsall, multiple of those runs, just no push whatsoever, and it really derailed and made that 1 yard run a lot more difficult than it should have been. So between that and just be able to recognize stunts and other double mug looks, all that, I think they desperately need Drew Dalman back next week, because I think that could at least help compensate for Kirk Cousins' limitations in the pocket when it comes to evading pressure.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one. You hate to see it go like this. You hate to see this for Younghoe Koo, because I think he's a guy that you just want to love. Like, he's a fun player. He has a great story. He's given so much for this team, but
he's been elite for like 4 years. I'm not like, he's been a top 5 kicker. Besides, let's look at Aubrey, Tucker, unfortunately Harrison Butker, McPherson, Cincy. Besides that, like, who over the past 3-4 years have been kicking at a high level better than Younghoe Koo? Like,
yeah,
people, you play fantasy football. Let me know what kickers are up there. Damn, who am I missing? I think that's it. It's what? It's Tucker, Butker, McPherson, and
Tucker's been having a bad year. So, like,
maybe Jake Elliott. Like, besides that, it's just like Koo's been among the top in the league, and he's won numerous games. So it's just, he's built up enough for a resume where it's like, let's see if he can respond for adversity. But I don't think you should be opposed to at least trying out kickers this week, because I look at the Jets situation, because Greg Zuerlein has also been a very good kicker for years, but he totally fell off this year, and to the point where the Jets just had to bring someone in. So you definitely give him another game or two, no doubt about it. But if it comes to a point where he's costing you multiple games, then look, this is a cutthroat league, and you can't throw games like this away because, look, as ugly as it was, the Falcons absolutely should have still won this game. They had more than enough opportunities, and to blow it like this, it hurts. But there aren't enough things for me to think this is a huge, devastating setback, unless Koo is really done and the secondary is still allowing big plays.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably the Falcons may have had 2 catastrophic injuries today. Mike Hughes leaves the game after just a couple plays with a neck injury. That's never a good sign. And then Taquan Graham in the first half also leaves with a pec injury where he never returns. That's a terrible sign too. So there could be 2 season-ending injuries on the table there for the Falcons. Mike Hughes was such a big part of this defense, and Clark Phillips. He had some positive flashes in snaps, but I mean, he may have to be the starting outside corner going forward, and you can't have games like this from your guy. I mean, he got absolutely cooked by MBS on multiple tries. You just can't have that. You got to play that better. So that's problematic. But ultimately, this team just, I mean, it looked like they just took this game lightly. The whole first half, it was sloppy. I didn't see the energy you're looking for. What's going on with Troy Anderson? They barely played that man.
I mean, that screen with Alvin Kamara, you kind of see why. He looked like he was stuck in the mud on that one. So,
I mean, it's just like,
God,
every one of their linebackers looks like they're stuck in the mud. Nate Landman doesn't look any better. I mean, he had a nice play today on that fourth down stop. I mean, no doubt, but it's just like, man, it's like these guys are like active and they're clearly not even close to healthy. It's just like, what is going on here with these guys?
Anderson's been out 6 weeks?
It's still not enough. It's still not enough apparently. And then Kate Ellis, poor guy, gets caught in isolation with Kamara there. By the way, can we get more superstar running backs just drop him? Saquon, Alvin Kamara, what other superstar running backs are on the schedule the rest of the way? I don't know who else. I'm not going to call Aaron Jones a superstar, but he is very good. But if any more running backs can today. Aaron Jones got carded today.
No, but I saw him back on the field.
Okay, good.
Game, yeah.
Good.
So, but running backs love dropping away open passes. But I think the linebacker play was decent. It's just there's moments where Alvin Kamara is still lethal.
He is,
even though he's aging. Alvin Kamara, but it's just the tackling was concerning. EJ Terrell had a bad miss on a third down where you should have expected him to get a 2-yard loss. And Terrell's usually been on Mac on open field tackling this year, so there were just those moments, and it just kind of summed up the first half where it's just, I don't know how you come out like that against a team where they're going to be emotionally fired up. And look, this rivalry speaks for itself. It's one of the biggest rivalries. The national media might not see it that way, but people that really know the league know how much the Falcons States despise each other. So to come out that flat is costly. And I do think the defense in general comes out flat in a lot of games. Look at that Dallas game.
Yeah.
Jake Ferguson just made Nate Landman look like he wasn't even there on a 30-yard play that should have been just a 5-yard quick out. So it's just Raheem Morris can't rely on these second half adjustments because football, to quote Bill Parcells, is a 60-minute game. Or if I get it wrong, it's 60 minutes. Yes, it's a 60-minute game. It's just come on now.
Yeah, they just had a bad first half team. And you just can't have that. It's not gonna work for you long term. But it's just a shame you get one of Bijan's best games of his career. I don't know. I just felt like Kirk was just a little bit off today, and that's exactly what it looked like against Seattle. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be one of those Kirk games where he's just a little bit off. And to be fair, this was a better game than Seattle. He threw some darts. That one, that downfield shot to Mooney was absolute perfection. That Kyle Pitts throw, I think was a tough catch for Pitts, but he made sure the defender couldn't affect it. That was a great play. This was not as bad as Seattle. I see some people trashing Kirk in this game. This wasn't a great game for him. I would say this was a very average Kirk Cousins game, but it's just the mistakes, like you said, and I think that Lindstrom one, that was a bad call. He got knocked over and rolled into a defender. That was not malicious at all. He wasn't even trying to block him. So, I think that was a bad call.
And that's a game changer. You go from second goal to one to first and goal at the 21-yard line. And then I think Mooney got a 5-yard false start. It's just stuff like that. So
but this team does that.
They
do that frequently. Yeah.
And that's where I can see where people's frustration lies. Because I was talking about how, there's a lot of freak mistakes, a lot of self-inflicted wounds, but it's this team does have a tendency of doing that. So I get your frustration. There is a team that is supposed to be good should not be beating themselves repeatedly like this. And we saw in the first Saints matchup. So I think that's what is going to have fans like questioning, what's this team's long-term potential, because they just have too much talent to go on a downward spiral. So that's where it leaves you frustrated, because like there's just so much star power on both sides of the ball. I'm not saying this defense is good, but they have enough players to keep it respectable. So I don't know. This is one of those games where it's gonna take a long week to get over it.
Yeah. It's just you gotta be better than this, man. You can't look like this in the NFL and expect to win games. The Saints are like a shell of a team with the talent they have out there. And like, to be fair, I think the Falcons were expecting the Saints to play what they've played all year, which is mostly zone with a little about 30% man mixed in. And the Saints went man almost exclusively in this game. And I think that threw off the offense early. They were expecting those zone windows to be there, and they were not. And that's just like a nod to the Saints. Like, yeah, they drastically changed how they played their defense going into this game in less than a week. And, it did catch the Falcons, I think, off guard. I just think they ran the ball so well in this game that it was kind of inexplicable just how aggressive they were on third down, just going for these really long, like 10 to 15 yard passes on third down, these outs that it's like, yeah, like you hit those pretty regularly, but like those are low percentage passes. Like even with the receivers you have and the DBs that they have, like forcing your guys to make great catches to keep your drives alive, like it's not going to work most of the time. I think that was just asking for inconsistent drives when you're leaning so hard on that aspect of your offense when Bijan's crushing it. And, I also think, yeah, like we talked about it earlier, like like they did seem to show trust in Koo, giving him that kick on the 4th and 3. I think they clearly should have gone for that. This team is so good on 4th down. Koo already missed
multiple
two
times.
Kicks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Koo already missed 2 kicks. I think you just go for that and hope for the best. I don't think that was like an obvious go for it situation like some of the ones they've done and done correctly, I would say. But I think it's like, you're just not going to win a lot of games when you leave 9 points on the field. And like one of them, it was blocked. So it's like, what would Koo have hit it if it wasn't blocked? I don't know. That kick looked pretty ugly from the moment it left his foot. But, you're just not,
yards too.
Yeah. And I'm not sure he would have got it. That kick looked so low. And he's going to have to bounce back quick, because if he has another game like this, they can't tolerate that. And you can't keep 2 kickers on the roster. So,
and he has to go Denver too.
Yeah.
Man. Look, the bye week might come at a very good time for this team, but look, Denver's huge. And I think they should embrace this matchup against Denver. I don't want to go too far at Denver, but you're going up against a team that is in the playoffs in the AFC, and they're clearly very well coached with Sean Payton and Vance Joseph. So I think it's going to be a really stern test to see what this team is made of. So they should embrace it. But I do think Zach Robinson was a little too overconfident, because even there were moments like I thought Cousins, one of his best balls was down the seam to Ray McLeod, but Pete Warner, credits him, was an excellent position, did just enough to disrupt them at the catch point. But just one of those moments where it's like, oh, it's 3rd and 3, and you're going like 20 yards downfield to Ray McLeod. Great throw by Cousins, but I think someone mentioned Allgeier is open, the flats. It's just one of those moments. It's just in these games, the margin for error is so small, and like if you do not capitalize there, it costs you. So
yeah, and it's like Cousins passed on a lot of easy first downs in this game to go for those 10 to 15 yard passes, and I think that's bad football. Like, yeah, like if you hit it, that's great, but like that's a low percentage play, and you just need to string drives together. You're down in this game. You can't be taking these types of risks. And it was like drive after drive after drive. It was like 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1, and we're doing 10 to 15 yard passes, and then they have to punt the ball away. It's like, how many drives did we throw in the trash by passing on easy completions for the first down just to try to get an extra couple yards out of it? It just, that's to me, like, it was pretty clear. I think Kirk was just pressing really hard in this game, and that's just another symptom of it. I mean, that Drake throw over the middle was inexcusable. Like that was not open. There were 3 defenders in the area, and there was a wide open Kyle Pitts underneath that would have still gotten you close to the first down yardage, and would not have risked the football. And I'm sure Kirk is aware of that, but it's like when he starts pressing, this offense collapses. Not because they look terrible, but because they pass up on high percentage conversions for these shots, and the shots, I mean, maybe it's a 50-50 play in your favor, and you like to get those shot plays. They're good for your offense, obviously, but like, why go for a 50-50 for a 15-yard gain, or like a 90% for a 5-yard gain that gets you to first down and keeps your drive going? It's just, I think the calculus there for Kirk is off.
Yeah, and it's some sense of overconfidence and some belief that, look, Darnell Mooney is second in the league in 20+ yard catches, so I could see why they like to be aggressive there. But I do wonder, when we watch the film, how much did spot dropping affect the Falcons' game plan? Because there was at least 3-4 times where it was Carl Granderson or Peyton Turner. They spot dropped and they couldn't get Drake London open on that choice route. But that's where it's like, okay, Zach Robinson, we need another alternative there. If Drake London's not getting open there, like, the last 2 weeks, Kyle Pitts, even though he made an amazing play, he's kind of been a non-factor. And I think this offense has proven those, especially those Bucks games, when they're at their best, Kyle Pitts is a bigger part of the game plan. So the fact that Kyle Pitts the last 2 weeks been pretty much a non-factor outside the big splash catch today, they need to find ways to get more involved, particularly in the short to intermediate areas of the field, because he can't just be someone that's getting 2 to 3 targets. And especially if teams start doing what the Saints did when it comes to spot dropping defensive linemen and taking away London, because London in the slot is a cheat code, especially on those choice routes, or just any sort of underneath route that he likes to run. Well, I was trying to think. Shake route, that's another one he likes to run. Like those types of plays, if teams start spot dropping, they're gonna have to find an alternative. And I just look, you got Kyle Pitts, he's a tight end, he's looked much more comfortable in the offense the last 5-6 weeks. Got to find ways to get a bit more involved, because like you said before, it can't just be we're going to go 15-20 yards downfield at Darnell Mooney, or we're going to go down the seam to Ray McLeod and force into a tight window.
Yeah.
Like last thing, because I would definitely want to talk this, take some questions. Like the Dallas Cowboys, people are looking at the Cowboys, like, have they fallen off? Like Dak Prescott, I think, led the league last year in tight window throws. Like his completion percentage was absurdly high. Those aren't sustainable. So you can't force Kirk Cousins at this point to connect on so many tight window throws, because it's just not sustainable in today's league. And I think that's why the Cowboys offense, besides the fact that they completely tanked their offseason, is why they're pretty much irrelevant now. So Zach Robinson, he's doing a great job this year. I'm still firmly on board with him, but you're going to have to get more high percentage solutions if teams are going to take away Drake London on third downs on those short intermediate routes.
Yeah. And I think it's just, Kirk has to get through those progressions quicker and check it down more, and especially in this game where they were basically leaving the check down uncovered a lot of time. I know obviously the spot dropping was affecting the routes they wanted to run to Drake over the middle. I mean, Cousins loves those routes on third down. But a lot of times you would see that drop and then you just see the back come out in the flat just with nobody there, or Pitts leak out, or Werner was wide open on one that Kirk just missed
That's another one,
game.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you got to have it there. Like, this I think this offense just like and the problem is like they do have the personnel like outside to win those one-on-one matchups and to get those 50-50 balls like in your favor. But it's just like, you shouldn't go for a 50-50 ball over like a 90% conversion. Like, and I get it. Like, I think Kirk just wants to be aggressive, and it's so funny, like watching from his like early years, he was like the check down king. And now he's like, F your check downs, I'm not throwing that shit. And just like, is belting this thing downfield. And like, honestly, like most of those like misses were very close to being catches. It's just like,
especially the McLeod one. The McLeod one was a beautiful throw. I'm like, I wish.
It's not like except for that Drake pick, like most of these are good on target passes that are just really tough 50-50 balls. And it's like, you can't keep taking those chances. Like, your third downs, your strategy should be to sustain drives, not to try to get chunk plays on third and short. I mean, like, sure, it's great if you can, but it's like that your strategy should be like, if there's an easy outlet for that first down, you take that every time. You don't need to go for these aggressive throws. So
I got a feeling we're going to see a more level-headed, safer Cousins next week. I'm basing this off they were really overconfident, thought they could just capitalize on a completely broken team, because the Saints were broken going to this game. You're going up against arguably top 5 defense next week at Denver. I don't think Cousins is throwing tight window passes to Patrick Surtain's way. So
probably not.
So that's what I'm hoping for. I think that's a well informed opinion there, but it's just, I want to base a lot of this off of just overconfidence, even though it is unacceptable, just because you should know in a game like this, especially given how bad the start was, you just got to make smart plays. And look, Kirk Cousins is not 26 years old. This guy's 36. He's been in the league for over a decade. So
yeah.
You want to get into listener questions?
Yeah. I do want to talk about Drew Dahlman not being active too, because I think that's another sign of overconfidence going into this one. But we'll talk about that after some questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got Rise Up reactions with the $10. Thank you, man. Says, was afraid of this. Koo hasn't been right this year. No longer super clutch. Do you think the defense played better overall? The Kirk interception was devastating. No move for a pass rush at the deadline. Looking worse now. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how that plays out. But the Falcons did get pressure, but no sacks once again today. And yeah, I mean, I think this team can't survive like that many blown possessions, like with Koo missing 3 kicks. Obviously, the block. Who knows if he would have made that one or not. But yeah, tough.
Do you know who is the edge defender they elevated? He made one nice stop.
Khalid Kareem? I don't know much about him other than that. He did have that one nice stop. And it's, anything to make sure that we don't play Zach Harrison, really. I think that seems to be the coaching staff's MO. Yeah. We're pulling guys off the street before we give Zach Harrison snaps on the edge. So
and I don't know how significant this is, but Judon didn't start. I don't know if it's just the coach staff utilizing him more now, just a nickel edge rusher, or they're trying to make a statement, but they started the game with Epiketti and Smith Williams.
Yeah. I
it's not like Judon's offering much, but that was a curious decision.
I think they were right to not play him. I think he's been bad. So I really don't think he offers you much at all right now. So that's why we're seeing Khalid Kareem and Damone Harris. Damone Harris didn't really play.
I saw more D'Angelo Malone, which was weird because I thought Malone. Yeah, I didn't think Malone played well at all.
You can't claim that they're not trying things, Alan. They're trying everything essentially, but
nothing's working.
It's not really working, but at least they're trying.
I still think their blitzes are really well. Other than Kane Ellis, I don't like what they do with their blitzes all, and even their simulated rushes. Like there was one moment, and I do think Darren Rizzi. That's his full name, right? I thought that they spot dropped Judon on 3rd and 6. They had Judon basically covering Jawan Johnson, and I think most tight ends probably convert there. But for a reason, Carr got the ball out late in his progression, and D'Alford made a tremendous play. Great open field tackle.
Nice tackle.
But if Carr was more alert there, that play should have went for like at least 10, 15 yards. And you just have Judon spot drop in there. And just another example, like the simulated pressure that the Falcons try to run there. Carr was completely at ease there, and just unless it's Kate Ellis doing something creative, like they're just getting nothing when it comes to trying to be creative there, and that's still one of the biggest defensive frustrations.
Yeah, I think this team just doesn't rush the passer well, and the things they have to try to do to get pressure are just leaving them open for these big plays, and it's not going great for them. But you also just can't sit back there and let them pick you apart either. So I mean, I get that they kind of feel like they're in a bind, but they decided to not make any moves. So this is the personnel we're dealing with, and we'll see if they can squeeze anything out of these guys. But I think it's pretty clear that Judon is not giving you anything, so I'm not even sure he should be playing. Honestly, I don't think he's giving you anything more. I feel like Kareem made as many plays. He's off the practice squad. I'm sorry, it's harsh, but
I'm gonna get probably heat for this, but I do think Lorenzo Carr might be coming off IR soon. I know
they clearly need him. Yeah.
At this point, you're just kind of what's the phrase? You're throwing darts at a board.
Yeah.
Or you're throwing stuff. You throw anything at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's the phrase. Sorry, folks. My head's in a maze today. But that's what the Falcons are kind of doing up front right now. We're just throwing stuff at the board. We're gonna see what fits, sticks, and take it from there.
Yep.
I thought the interior line played better though. This was one of Onyema's better games.
Yeah.
He had a
the
point
second half.
Yeah.
What do you know? Eddie Goldman getting more snaps turns into good things for the Falcons' run defense. It's crazy that when you give your nose tackle a decent run of snaps that they stop the run better. I know that's like a bold statement that defenses don't typically do. You don't usually play your nose tackle in base defense to stop the run. I know that's a very foreign concept to this team, but yeah, crazy what happens when you just put 330 pounds of beef in the middle of your defensive line. It's wild stuff there. Yeah.
Especially when you love playing with lighter boxes as well.
Exactly.
He might have to play more with Quan Graham's injury.
Because we know we're not going to see Brandon Dorless, so they will still not activate him. They will find any way to keep him inactive for some reason. So that seems to be where we're at with that. But we got Nivo with the $2. What's up, man? Says, before we spend the whole show focusing on knee-jerk reactions about Koo. Oh, I'm sorry. I think it needs to be acknowledged that except for Bijan, the offense was about as potent as a eunuch. Wow, eunuch drop there. and that despite the Saints' large number of injury. I mean, the Falcons did outgain the Saints. I think the offense, in terms of like between the 20s, played well outside of the first quarter, basically, but they just kept crapping the bed every time they got in scoring position. I mean, sacks, the penalties, one of which I think was not their fault. I think that Lindstrom penalty was a huge swing that was not a penalty. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately the offense was fine. They just didn't execute when they needed to. And that combined with your kicking game being completely terrible. I mean, 3 missed kicks. Like you can't weather that. You just can't, like, not very many teams are going to be able to survive that. Like, if you're having trouble in the red zone, it's like, all right, well, at least we can get 3 and whittle this thing down. Nope. 9 points pissed away, so Falcons win comfortably with those kicks. So
absolutely. Another play definitely wants to see the all 22. I don't know if you noticed this, but there was a third goal at the 8 where London was in the slot. It was running like an in-breaking route. And Cousins got bumped by Matthews because Chase Young bull rushed Jake Matthews. But it was like a slight bump, knocked him off his spot. But Cousins just totally underthrew it. Like, he threw the ball basically in the dirt. And it just, any sort of notion, like where he gets knocked off his spot, his accuracy could just go all over the place. I don't know if you saw it, but it was like a 3rd and goal at 8, and that's where that was only Koo's make. I think Koo hit it from like 28 yards. But that was one of those 3rd down plays where I'm like, yeah, they just did not execute. But man, those Caleb McGary mistakes, I'm telling you, when you rewatch the game, those 2 Caleb McGary mistakes cost them drives. Yeah. And it's just like, God, like, those are the moments, just like, how does this happen at this time? Because it's just, I think I saw George Foster, who's a former offensive line, talk about like McGary needs to play the wider stance. Maybe that's the case. But do you notice he's playing with still a knee brace? Like, I don't know if he's 100% healthy.
I don't know. He might not be. That's just bad luck. Like, he's just stepping on feet and stuff like that. Like, it.
The second one in particular was bad because it was Bijan, and Bijan was trying to pick up.
Yeah. No, it's just like it. That's not like, oh, he's just getting owned out there. It's like, I mean, it just, the foot ended up in the wrong spot. Guys got pushed, and it just ended up being a catastrophic cascade of events. But it's like, that's the thing with Kirk, is like, he needs things to be perfect in front of him. The offensive line blows a block, it's a sack, and it like a 50% chance for a turnover, it feels like. And that's going to put a hard ceiling on what this team can do against good defenses. And the Saints defense isn't even good. Like
we even saw in the Seattle game, that fumble that went for a touchdown. 98% of the league quarterbacks do not turn it over there. Like, it was just one of those plays where Kirk's just so slow getting out of the pocket, and then he tries to throw at Mafe, just whacks him, and the ball goes for a touchdown. It's just, he's got to play better within his limitations, and you think after all these years he would know that. But look, sometimes mistakes happen. But that's why I hope people don't look at sacks allowed as a stat for the Falcons offense line this year and use it as a way to gauge their performance. The Falcons are going to be very high in sacks allowed this year, and I think a significant part of that is just because of Cousins.
Yeah. So, sacks are a quarterback stat, like it is part of it is that. And like, I know Michael Penix isn't known for being like the most mobile quarterback, but like, we saw it in the preseason, right? Like, he can step up and avoid pressure or like get around guys and throw on the run. And Kirk just can't do any of that stuff. And like, as good as Kirk has been when he's kept clean, and that's really his thing. Like, if you keep him clean, he could just dice up somebody, and that'll win you a lot of games. But if you can't, it's going to cause problems. And I think we're seeing why the Falcons probably were wise to not pin everything on Cousins being the savior and just kind of being happy that he's going to come in here and provide stability and give this team, fringe top 10 quarterback play, I think, pretty clearly. But like, the difference between 10 and top 5 is what separates like the Super Bowl contenders from just the winning football teams in the NFL. And I think, we'll see over time if this strategy works, but the Falcons are like, we're going to get some stability in here and like make the playoffs. Hopefully, we still got a ways to go. And then like, we'll see how far that can take us. But in the very likely event that it's not enough, then we have this guy that we feel like he could get us that next step of the way there, like what the Packers are doing with Jordan Love. And we'll see if that ends up working out for them. But I think that is a key part of their strategy here, is just, to try to see if they can get, not to be tied to a guy that maybe does have a hard ceiling in this league, And even if the ceiling is good, you need great to win Super Bowls. Like, you're just not going to win look at the 49ers with Brock Purdy. Like, that team, I think the 49ers have put the best possible team they could around like a relatively good but not great quarterback in Brock Purdy. And it's like, you get to the Super Bowl and you go up against Patrick Mahomes, and what do? You can't beat him. You're not dynamic enough. Your guy's not going to be able to keep up with him. That's the difference when you get to the high levels of the NFL. And I think the Falcons are still a long way away from that, but I think they at least have some kind of strategy for getting there. And in the meantime, just play winning football. And so far they still are, 6-4. Got a ways to go. Like, the Bucs are definitely not going away. Like, that team, even down Tristan Wirfs, took the 49ers to the brink. That team is not going to roll over. So you're going to have to play good football to close this year out, because you're not coasting to an easy division title this year. Like, the Bucs aren't going to have it. And, you blow a winnable game here, blow your division sweep, blow your perfect division record. You got big questions about the kicking game. The defense is still very shaky. The offense is still inconsistent. I was going to get to something about Drew Dahlman. It's like, Drew Dahlman practiced fully all week, and they said he wasn't good. They weren't going to activate him. And I don't understand that. And I think if this team had a consistent run game today that they felt they could lean on, I think they win this game. So I'm wondering, like, if they just were like, we don't really need him this week, we'll give him another week to rest. And it's like, you might have needed him. you blew a lot of blocks on the inside in this one.
Yeah. You got the bye week coming up too. Yeah. So either you feel confident or you don't, but they desperately need him next week.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
But you make a great point especially with the quarterback play. Like, you just see, you watch Thursday night with the Ravens and Bengals. Like, best quarterbacks, like, they know how to throw when the pocket collapses. They know how to evade pressure. They know how to play out of structure when play's not happening in rhythm. So it's a matter of when plays go off schedule. Like, Cousins is either gonna have to check it down to Robinson, or he's gonna have to throw up a YOLO bomb to Pitts or whoever may be downfield. It's just, the Falcons' offense is very much, we have to operate in structure. We have to play in sync. Otherwise, if things go off schedule, who knows what Cousins could do. And it just, like you mentioned before, it's so frustrating that when things do go off the rails, the high probability for a turnover increases greatly. And a veteran quarterback shouldn't be turned the ball over like this. And
yeah. That one throw, like, if he doesn't throw that and they just lose because they can't punch it in at the end or something like that, I think we feel very differently. But it's like, he does this, man. Like, he presses and he gets to this spot where he just, like, you don't need to throw that. Like, you just need to calm down. And it's kind of a theme of the game. It's like, take the high percentage play that's going to keep you alive instead of going for the kill. And it's like, instead, like, that's just Cousins' thing. Like, he's a little, I think they're just too confident right now. And like, I love confidence. Like, confidence, that's nice. But like, you got to be better. Like, you can't just go out there and think that we're the best team and just vibe it out.
I can understand why they had a high level of confidence going this one, because against the Bucs, Cousins was phenomenal. And Dallas, I thought he was very efficient. Like, I think the offense, when they sputtered against the Cowboys, it was just because Zimmer was dialing up great blitzes and they didn't have a response for that. I thought Cousins played as flawless as a game you could ask for against both the Bucs and the Cowboys. So I can understand why they were feeling themselves, but it's just, adjustments have to be made, especially when you come out in the first quarter and the Saints are playing such tight man coverage. So, and your team that is efficient because you're well balanced. Like, you do not want Cousins. Like, I'm still surprised he only had 38 pass attempts. I think maybe that's because they barely had the ball in the first quarter. It just felt like he had like 50 pass attempts, but the time possession was so drastic in the first half, or first quarter, excuse me. But it's just, if this team's going to play winning football, it's probably best that Cousins throws the ball 25, 30, 35 at most. Like, if he goes over that 35 total, things can get a bit dangerous, because look, we know how good this team is on the ground. And I'm thrilled for Bijan. I think Bijan, just besides Henry and Barkley, I don't think there's a better running back in the league. All right, we could talk about McCaffrey, what he does in future, but we're talking about currently this year. Man, Bijan's just playing at an extraordinary level right now. Just, God, his balance. Like, it was wild. That touchdown run, he was about to fall, and he still outran Matthew.
Yep.
Like he was tripping. He just
first. He was like, that's fine. I got it. Like he's been so close to breaking that run like this year, and he finally broke it. So I'm happy for him. But yeah,
he had it against Tampa, but McLeod got called for the holding.
Yeah.
So it's he just those moments like because he has the home run speed. It's just everything needs to go right. And well, not everything. Like he literally broke one tackle on that play. It kind of went right. So
yeah, no, I mean I think this is this team, like the run game, I think is a part of this team that like needs to be more emphasized. Like, there was that sort of mid-season slump where they really struggled to run the football, and I think that's come full circle now, and they're back to being a very good run team. I think the other side of it is like, and no offense to Tyler Allgeier, but like Bijan Robinson is just so clearly the better option. And it's not like I think Tyler Allgeier is like one of the best RB2s in the league. I think he's clearly like when it's blocked up, he is a bowling ball that can just punish defenders on the end of a play. And I think he's a great closer and all this stuff. But we've seen like with how inconsistent this Falcons offensive line has been blocking it up, Allgeier just doesn't have the dynamic ability to fix mistakes. And I think, there was a great analysis by, who was it this week? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on it, but
Derek Klassen had a really good break on it.
Yeah, it was Derek. That's right.
Yeah.
And basically just going through like all the mistakes that Bijan erases. And he's like, they basically like not like Bijan's basically prevented Ryan Newsel and inconsistency on the interior offensive line from like killing this run game because he just shifts out of that gap and goes somewhere else and is able to turn tackles for loss into a couple yards and turn 2-yard gains into 6-yard gains and that sort of thing. And that's just like Tyler Allgeier, as good as Tyler is, and I think he'd probably be the starting running back on a lot of teams, Bijan is like clearly an elite player. So it's not slander to just say that like, look, you're better off giving the ball to Bijan in pretty much every situation. Because like one of Bijan's, I think, problems last year was that the patience wasn't really there. Like you could tell he was, and then a lot of rookies do this. They just charge at the line of scrimmage. They want to get there as quick as they can. They want to just get into the end zone or get to the first down line. But the secret to the NFL rushing is that you should just be patient and trust your blocks and see how the play develops before you start. Once you take two, 3 steps forward, you don't really have any more opportunity to change your lane or get into a different gap. Like you kind of committed. And if you commit too soon, that's what you'll see. Sometimes you run into the back of your offensive lineman and there's nothing there. I think Bijan's patience and his vision and ability to just kind of find those little bits of space to carve out a couple extra yards, that's the difference between him being a 4 yards per carry back and a 6 yards per carry back like we saw today. And I think that's just an advantage I think he has over Tyler, his dynamic ability, his stop-start, his,
jump cuts.
That does nasty jump cut. And it's like you hate, like I feel like I always have to couch this because Allgeier I think has proven himself as a very good NFL running back, but it's not a fair comparison. Like Bijan is a special running back. So I know like I love Allgeier. I don't know if Allgeier or his family watched the show. None of this is Allgeier slander.
Dude, he's fantastic. It's just there's levels to this.
It's just it's just you kind of have to tip your cap if you're Allgeier. You're like, God, like what am I supposed to do about this? There's only a handful of guys in the world that can run the ball better than Bijan Robinson, and I think we're seeing that really play out in his second year.
Yeah, and like Allgeier, look, he's still going to play a role in this team, and next year, and then he's going to find an opportunity elsewhere. I think that's got to be his career trajectory. But it's just I think since the Panthers game, we've just seen Bijan Robinson like, okay, you got to start 20 touches minimum per game. If you get more, you need to do it because it's just every play. There's just some purposeful gains and just his feel. And like you mentioned before, the patience. And it's just there's no wasted movement with him. And it's just a joy to watch. Like there was one 8-yard run like early in the game where it was just everything was stuffed up. I think Tyrann Mathieu was coming from the backside. I thought he was going to wrap him up for a 2-yard loss, and Bijan just carries him for a good 6 yards, ends up getting 8 yards. It's just he minimizes damages, and the possibilities are endless with him. So at this point, the only thing you can ask for, I've been kind of banging this drum. Just gotta get more involved in the pass game besides checkdowns. Like I think there was one play. I think they ran him in motion as a receiver, but besides that, I don't know. I like to see him whether it's run mesh with him or even try to stop and go on the outside. I just think there could be more opportunities to get more creative with him, especially if teams are going to take away Drake London.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think like, and this is what I said when he was drafted, is like you look at his measurables and his tape, and he's identical to Deebo Samuel, like in terms of his measurables. Now obviously Deebo is more of a receiver than a runner, but we've seen what Deebo could do when he was given a workload as a rusher. Now Bijan's a much better rusher. He's just got a better feel for it. He's got better contact balance, but like I think those two guys, like I think Bijan could be the best version of Deebo in that I think Bijan over time can take on more of a receiving game role to where he's a true two-way player where he could go out there and line up in the slot and run receiver routes. Now, I think the Falcons tried to do way too much with him last year where they were trying to get him acclimated to the NFL and they were having him run like choice routes and stuff. Like that's probably too much, but like as he grows and gets more comfortable and more years in the NFL, I think you start giving him more reps as a receiver. You give him the opportunity to learn a route tree, to run some of those receiver routes, and especially like those yards after catch, big hitter type runs. Like you just teach him the route tree, let him do that stuff, and start deploying him more as a part of your passing game. And I think that's in the cards for him. I think this staff wisely has kind of limited that role a little bit more because they wanted him to get his rushing where it needed to be, and I think he's done that this year. He's getting more patient. He's focused a lot on that, instead of overwhelming him with this extra passing game work. But, next year, like next camp, you start, I think, bringing in more of his passing game acumen. And I don't think there's any reason he can't run receiver routes. Like, this is a very talented guy, clearly smart guy. So I love Bijan Robinson, I guess, is the takeaway from that conversation. Yeah.
Do you believe the coaching staff's a little hesitant also because of Cousins' limitations when it comes to evading pressure and just handling pressure in general? Like, because you don't see the Falcons run empty too often. Like, I don't know what the percentage is, but you rarely see them running empty. So do you think that's another reason behind Bijan having to be in the backfield, mostly in pass situations? Because he is quite a bit picking up blocks and, handling pressures.
Yeah, right now they need him in the backfield. And I wonder if perhaps they can do some things like with like Charlie Werner lined up back there, like next to Kirk as sort of that like, last line of defense pass blocker, and then you'd like motion Bijan out, into the slot or something like that. Just some creative stuff. But yeah, at the moment, like the Falcons do need his pass pro, and he's clearly taken a huge step forward there. So definitely interested to see how they, work on that, especially over like the bye week and stuff. But Bijan just such a good player. You got to find ways to get him the ball. And I think clearly looking like the best player on offense overall. And that's really saying something considering how great a season we've seen from Darnell Mooney. And Kirk having a good year on the whole too. Let me get to a couple more of these listener questions. Thanks guys so much for donating. We got Sour Pickle. What's up, man? With the $5 says, this team doesn't have a clue about how to put teams away. They're going to have to get over the hump and figure that out eventually. Yeah, I think that kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier, which is that this seems way too aggressive on third down. And like the value of just staying on the field, and like it's okay to have to grind your way down the field on these longer drives. It gives your defense a rest. You get time of possession. You limit opportunities for your opponent. And I think they need to get more into that mindset instead of this like balls to the wall aggressive passing game. Like your run game's good enough. I think that especially when Dahlman's back and maybe you get that consistency that you've kind of been lacking on the inside, that you can just trust it, like your run game to be able to grind out games and pick up short yardage. And maybe that will end up fixing this like third and short aggressiveness problem when you just trust your center to be able to get that block to get you that extra yard that maybe you don't trust Newsel to get. So maybe that will change things when Dahlman does return, but we'll see.
Because we saw it cost them against the Chiefs, besides the egregious missed call in the end zone on Pitts, but that was the problem there.
Yeah.
What I was going to mention, talk about putting teams away. Look, they still got the Raiders, the Giants, and the Panthers. Those are three opportunities to put teams away. We'll see what they do with those games there.
Yeah. I mean, the Falcons still have some easy games that they have to win. But like that's not going to be enough anymore. Like you blew this game. You got to win some of these hard games now. Yeah. You got to win some of these toss-up games, and none of these teams look unbeatable. Obviously, the Broncos clearly have their limitations offensively, and like that defense has been vulnerable against the run. So this is a game where maybe the Falcons really ride that to find success there. The Chargers defense is good and the offense is getting better, and they run the ball as well as anyone. And the Falcons don't really stop the run very well. They did do better in this one. Eddie Goldman, cough, cough. Play that man.
Falcons are going to come off a bye too against the Chargers.
Yeah,
when you come off a bye, the increase of the expectations should be there. Like, you have 2 weeks to prepare. I think the Chargers game, especially at home, you got to win that one. To me, the biggest toss-ups are Washington and Minnesota. As bad as Sam Darnold's looking, it's just that Brian Flores defense is Kirk Cousins. That's going to be like the biggest offense test for this offense. Like, I do firmly believe the Falcons are a top 10 offense, but wow, Brian Flores in that defense, that game could be a car crash.
I mean, the thing about the Vikings is, like, that team is starting to kind of unravel offensively.
Still got the defense though, man.
But that defense is really good.
And that offense still has plenty of star power in terms of the skill position players. Like, we know how good Justin Jefferson is. TJ Hawkins is healthy. I think Jordan Anderson's one of the more underappreciated receivers in the league. Like, they got firepower still there, and the offense line's relatively good, even though Darius Shaw is a massive loss.
Yeah. I think we'll see how these two teams look when they play, but there's this kind of middle stretch here where the Falcons are going to have to find some wins against these in these kind of toss-up close games that, like, they might not necessarily be favored in. They're going to have to find some wins there. They can't just rely on beating the bad teams and coasting into the playoffs anymore. And we'll see, like, the Bucs obviously are the team that has to, like, step up. Like, the Falcons can't afford to, like, get sloppy, but the Bucs can't really afford to lose anything. Like, they are going to have to kind of win out or close to it, and that obviously gives the Falcons some extra breathing room, but, like, it's not as much breathing room as you think if you look at their schedule. Like, there's not a lot of games on there that you're expecting even a hobbled Bucs team to lose. I mean, they've got a cakewalk for the most part. So, that Bucs team could realistically, like, win 7 of their next 8 games or something like that. So,
and they're a veteran team too.
Yeah.
They've battle-tested.
Yeah. And they're going to get Mike Evans back at some point, and, their defense is awful. So that's always going to lead to problems. But, that team is not bad. Like, for how many injuries they have and missing Chris Godwin and all this stuff, like, that team yes, the Bucs did lose today, in case people didn't know that. So the Falcons don't lose any ground, but they should have made up ground here. This was one of the most winnable games on the schedule. Obviously, we've talked about why, like, this game was going to be harder than it would be for any other team, basically, because the Saints hate the shit out of the Falcons. The Falcons hate the Saints. They just fired their coach. Emotional game. They were clearly playing their asses off, and, like, hat tip to them. They shouldn't have had a chance in this game, and they came to play and took advantage of a sleeping Falcons team in the first half. But, the Falcons don't really have much wiggle room. Like, it feels like they did. If they'd won this game, they would have tons. They would still feel very comfortable. But you lose this game. This is one of your, like, wiggle room games now. Like, you just crossed one off the list. It's like your timeouts. It's like you just used one. You got 2 left to get to the rest of the season. You can't really afford. You got to basically go into that Commanders game at the end of the season not needing a win. If you go into that Commanders game needing to win, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. So, and hopefully that won't happen. We got a ways to go. This Falcons team can obviously get better. They do have a bye to hopefully make some changes and that sort of thing. But you hate to lose this game. And it was such an obvious trap game. Like, they need to abandon this whole walk into your trap crap. Every time they start talking about that, it was the Seahawks game and this game, and they just look terrible in both games. It's like, y'all need to ditch that, like, completely, because you're just getting embarrassed every time you bring that up. So,
well, that's a good thing. Now they're going to play a lot more tougher teams going forward.
Yeah.
So
maybe they won't have to. Yeah.
The trap won't be until mid-December, when I think it's the Raiders Giants back-to-back, which should be 2 doozies. But look, the silver lining in this is that we're really going to see what this team is made of next week. If they beat Denver, I think people are going to regain optimism of where this team could go. And because we haven't seen them being tested against a really good defense, it's probably the Chiefs game. So let's see what this top 10 offense is really made of. Are they going to lean to the running game? Will Kyle Pitts play a bigger role? Or is Darnell Mooney going to continue to keep shining? If teams start, is Patrick Surtain going to shadow Drake London? Because Patrick Surtain doesn't shy away from going to the slot. So this might be a game where they're going to have to run the ball heavy, because it might be hard to get London good looks.
Yeah. That's not going to be an easy game, no doubt about it.
And Sean Payton, Sean Payton hates the Falcons. Well,
yeah.
Always,
Oh God, yeah. No, I mean, the Falcons should hate him just as much, but I said that about this game, and the Falcons didn't look like they were interested and fight in this rivalry game. So that's disappointing. I just don't know how you come out so flat in this rivalry game, man. It's just like this. I just don't get it. Like, how is this team so overconfident? Like, you guys haven't done shit in like 7 years, and you come out treating the Saints like that to open the game. And like, yeah, to their credit, they like woke up in the second half, but it's like, I just like, you ain't good enough to be an asshole. Like, I think that sums it up. Like, it's just like, you ain't good enough to be an asshole. Like, I need you to stop joking around with this shit and take this shit seriously. Like this is the most obvious trap game. The Saints are going to give you their best shot of the season. They're probably going to like get waxed the rest of the way after this. Like, I'm fully confident in that happening. But like, it's just like, you can't come out looking this flat, man, against a rival in their stadium where this is going to be a hard game, and it's like you're just gonna. I just don't like to see that. It's not a good sign. That you're that flat in a game like this. Like, everyone could see this coming except the Falcons. It's just not great. We got 2 more questions here. Thanks, guys, so much for that. We got $10 from Sour Pickle. What's up, man? Thanks again. He says, might not be a setback to the Falcons' position in the NFC South, but it is to us as fans. Can't trust this team when it comes to putting teams away. They need to start dominating teams they should beat. I mean, yeah, no question about it to me. I think that pretty much sums it up. Like, this team's going to have to not only beat the teams they have to beat, like, that are easy, but they got to find wins against some of these tougher teams they're playing too, At least the good news is, like, they actually look like a pretty competent team most weeks. They tend to play to their competition. Like, early in the season when they were playing all these tough teams, they were looking like they were on par with them. So hopefully they could, if they could steal some wins, like if they could get a win against the Chargers, get a win against the Vikings, get a win against, they could just like win those 2. Like, I think if you can win the Broncos and win the Chargers, like, you're probably fine at that point. You win the rest, and then you win the rest of your easy games. You get to 11 wins, you're probably good to go. But like, that's not easy per se. Like, those are tough teams. So
you got to prove it. If this team wants to play in January, you got to win these games. And look, Denver and the Chargers, they're 2 very well coached, 2 excellent defenses, but they have some severe offensive limitations. So if the Falcons believe they have the firepower and they have the veterans and the coaching staff to beat these teams, then they got to prove it. So I don't think the Chargers or Broncos should be feared. The Vikings and the Commanders, on the other hand, those are probably the 2 games where my expectations will be a little lower than it. If they could win either of those, I think that would be a huge statement win. Mm-hmm. While I think with the Broncos and Chargers, it's like, if this team truly believes they're going to win the NFC South, then at minimum you would win those games, if not both.
Yeah, they have to. You got to find wins against those tough teams, not just the NFC, not just beat up on the NFC South. Like, you can't expect the Bucs to go 7-10 like the Falcons. So, yeah. So we got one more. Jason Gaines with the $2. Says, this is a bad loss to a bad Aints team. I would honestly sign a veteran kicker like Riley Patterson or Randy Bullock to the squad. Also, our secondary got torched today by an average at best wide receiver in Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That is inexcusable. Well, MVS does one thing well, and it's run deep routes. And the Falcons had no respect at all for his ability to do that. That's why they left him singled up most of the time. And on one of those, like, that other touchdown, that was just like, I don't know.
Yeah, break that down. With Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell, what happened there?
I mean, first of all, it was a good play call. Like, they knew they would get that sort of look where if they motioned those guys that way, that Terrell was going to have to pick up MVS out of there. And MVS has a straight shot on the slant route there to like the middle of the end zone. I think Bates has to get depth there. Like, I think he's looking for like the dump off, and watching guys. But like, I think Bates just has to get depth to make sure that like the guy that is going to go right behind him doesn't have an easy catch. I think if Bates gets like 2 more yards of depth, he's got a chance at picking that pass off. But it's the red zone. You're on the goal line. It's a tough situation. He's got to choose to play closer to the line to potentially give run support or catch one of those short crossers. He chose to do that. And Terrell had no chance of catching up to MVS like with that route. So
they did run play action with that too. You could see Bates was staring down Carr's eyes. So that little misdirection probably affected him as well.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Like, if he gets depth and they run the ball, he probably isn't able to get there for the tackle. So obviously, benefit of us watching it in reverse, it's like, well, if he gets depth there, it's probably a pick. But if he doesn't, and it's not a play action and it is a run, if the D-line gets gashed, which they were getting gashed for a lot of this game, then he's just going to give that up. So I think that was a great play call. Like, it put Bates in a big bind, and it took Terrell basically out of the play because there's not really any realistic way he can get to that pass. So, Saints came to play. They pulled out all the stops. I think we should have expected that. The Falcons didn't. The Falcons shot themselves in the foot over and over again. They got beat by a worse team. And they're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. Hopefully not terrible consequences, but, these are the games you can't really afford to lose in this league. And they're going to have to make it up somewhere at this point. So
you said shooting themselves in the foot. I'm going to say tripping themselves with their own feet.
Yeah. That happened twice. Yeah. That did happen twice. Yeah.
And one of them led to a Kirk Cousins fumble. And then the other one, it led to a Cam Jordan sack. And I'm not sure if Cam Jordan's going to get another sack this year. So, of course, Cam Jordan, who just looks very old, had to get his moment against the Falcons. That's why I know, just like, God, if Cam Jordan's not – we have MVS and Cam Jordan making big plays. Oh, this is not going to
Yeah. But, yeah, it's a division game. It's a weird game against a rival coming off of firing their coach, who apparently is like the most hated person in New Orleans. I can't believe that they didn't fire him, given how much the team apparently hated his guts. Like, that just seems like malpractice.
He's been there for at least 6 years. He was a great defense coordinator, but I think word going around New Orleans is obviously New Orleans has been in the news this week for the big moves, obviously Trey Lattimore as well, is that they just kind of believe in their own archaic system and they just want to keep promoting from within. They basically holding on to the Sean Payton model for 20 years and they want to replicate that. That's why they kept Pete Carmichael as well after Sean Payton left. And it's just paying the price for it with Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen.
Yeah. And, I think people are kind of overreacting to Kirk's game. That pick was the most egregious thing for him.
He played well for stretches. It wasn't as bad. To me, his worst games were opening weekend and the Seattle game.
Yeah.
That and pick, the first half against Philly.
That pick was bad. No doubt about it. But 23 of 38, you don't love that. But, over 300 yards passing. The run game.
Saints DBs made some plays too.
They did.
There's no, and Pete Warner too. That Pete Warner pass breakup was. You don't see many linebackers do that.
No, I think the Falcons were really shocked that the Saints went this man heavy given their secondary problems. And this Falcons team over the last several weeks has just destroyed zone coverage. And I think they were really hoping they would have some more zone coverage to feast on. And I think that was a big part of why they started so slow, is they were kind of just flabbergasted that the Saints played so much man given their corners. And it took them a while to adjust. When they did adjust, I think it started to go better for them. But, I think just a couple of things like over-aggressiveness on third down, not really taking the check downs, and Kirk just being, again, too aggressive in a lot of spots. That cost him this one. But opportunity to bounce back, get a big win on the road against Denver. Tough game coming up. We'll see how the Falcons navigate that. Not going to be easy. Probably the best defense they played all year or close to it. And it's in Denver, which that's one of the most difficult places to win in the NFL. Yeah. So
I'm still going Chiefs defense as the best defense, but Denver is right up there. There's no denying what they've proven this year. And they're very deep up front too. They're the best cornerback in the league, and they're very deep. Zach Allen's playing like an all-pro this year, and then you have guys like Benito. It's going to be a huge challenge.
Yeah. So they're going to have to find a way. There's a really sort of sad video here of Koo walking off the field. He sees Arthur Blank and he's basically this game was on me. And Arthur Blank comes and gives him a hug and stuff. And that's again, people don't forget, whatever happens with Koo this season, if he falls off and is done, that's gonna be really sad. Because this guy has delivered so much for this team over the years. Don't disrespect his legacy because of the end. This happens with kickers. Guys fall off, sometimes. I hope this isn't the end for Koo. I hope maybe he can just go back to what he was doing before and patch up everything over the bye week and comes out firing after that. And we just forget this as just a bad blip this year. But don't slander his memory and his legacy because he's having a bad season. That doesn't erase everything he's done for this team. And, done off the field as well. Great guy. Great story. And regardless, I respect Koo and what he's given this team. So, hopefully he can turn it around. I would like nothing more than to see him do that. But He's running out of time, especially with this team in winning position. If this team was not in the hunt for the playoffs, they'd probably be more forgiving. But right now they can't really afford to do that. So hopefully it's all okay. Hopefully Koo gets right and we don't have to have this conversation ever again. That would be fantastic. But yeah, Alan, anything else you want to touch on before we sign off today?
No, it's just one of those games where everything went wrong and just gotta use it as a teachable moment. That's it. Whoever adjustments have to be made, they have to be made. But overall, I think we're gonna look back at this game as more of a blip than anything else. I don't think this loss is gonna lead to long-term issues or the start of a downward spiral. I think if anything, this could be a little injection of motivation and hopefully just a better idea of what they could do or how they're going to operate with Kirk Cousins, because I think some of these games are a learning experience of what they can do and what they can't do with Kirk Cousins. And maybe this is going to lead to more of a run-heavy approach. As great as they are through the air in these types of games, Bijan Robinson's feeling it. Get Bijan Robinson 25 touches. Like maybe today was the moment where they could rely more on Bijan to be that bell cow back. Even though Allgeier can get his moments, if there's going to be games where Bijan needs 25 touches, but you got to win in this league. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we saw that, 20 carries for Bijan today. I think he could have had more. And, it's not like Tyler ran poorly on his carries, 11 for 59. But, yeah, this team may have to lean more and more on that going forward, and we'll see how that goes, given the struggles of everyone else. But, yeah, guys, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Falcoholic Live Falcons vs. Saints post-game show. I'm Kevin. I have Falcoholic Kevin. He's Alan Strk at Alan Strk. Please like, subscribe. Make sure you can leave us that 5-star review in your podcast platform of choice. All those things really help us out, so thank you guys so much. Check out the Patreon for access to that early content, those ad-limited shows. Check out the channel memberships if you're more of a video enjoyer. Let me squeeze in an ad read here for Bet Online because I didn't do it earlier. I'm going to have to edit this to be earlier in the episode after that, but much easier if I record it, so bear with me, guys, here. But, folks, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen with the latest selection of odds from everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. BetOnline's got it for you. I'm interested to see what the Falcons line is against the Broncos on the road. I'm guessing it'll be pretty close, pretty close to even. Maybe Broncos even favored. We'll see, considering they're at home. So we'll see how that goes. But no matter what you want to bet on, guys, head to betonline.ag today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Make sure when you sign up to use our promo code, it's BELIEVE, BLEAV, for access to the latest promotions. BetOnline, the game starts here. Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the Falcoholic Live. I'm Kevin Knight. He's Alan Strk. We'll see you guys next time. We'll have Tuesday takes with Trayshawn coming early this week as we get prepped for a critical road matchup with the ascending Denver Broncos in Week 10 or in Week 11 before we get on to the bye week in Week 12, which seems like it's going to be much needed for this Falcons team one way or the other. So until next time, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you. Have a great night.